the Ron and Brian Podcast. Get ready to fill your ears with the latest news, politics, current events, and whatever else we feel like talking about this week. And now, your hosts, Ron and Brian.
Good evening, everybody. It is Sunday night. It is 8 o'clock on the East Coast, and it is time for episode 246, I believe, of the Ron and Brian Podcast. Brian, how the hell are you, sir?
I am doing great. It is Sunday. It is the hour of the week that I look forward to the most. I get to look at your beautiful face, looking right back at me. You keep me entertained. I entertain you. It's like paradise.
All right. Well, we got a jam-packed show tonight, so let's get right into it with Drink of the Week.
Drink of the week.
Na zdrowie.
Salud.
Drink of the week.
Sláinte.
Who's?
Drink of the week. Drink of the week. Drink of the week.
All right,
Drink of the week.
Brian, what are you drinking this week?
This week, Ron, I took a little a virtual trip over to Ireland and brought back Smithwick's Red Ale.
Smithwick's, nice.
That is absolutely correct. First, let's take a look at this amber hue. Look at the hue as you look right past me into the beer. What are we looking at here, Ron? We are talking about a distinctive ruby red color that makes it unmistakably Smithwick's. With a refreshingly balanced taste, this is a blend of mild hops, sweet malt, and roasted barley. The gentle bitterness of the hops is perfectly complemented by the sweet malty notes. It's copper-colored ale with a thick, pillowy head. The aroma is sweet, malty caramel notes. It has a very clean taste. Great hop flavors coming in at ABV 4.5%. Smithwick's Red Ale going down my gullet.
Smithwick's is a classic. Wise choice. It's always good.
Ooh.
That very familiar, kind of a nutty taste almost.
Yes. Kind of like that scene in Austin Powers where they go into the room with the sumo wrestlers, and Austin Powers starts drinking the fecal matter, and he's like very nutty.
Just as a disclaimer, we are not implying that Smithwick's contains fecal matter.
No, not at all. This is a delicious beer. Absolutely good.
Good.
I already almost halfway done with it. Ron.
Yes.
Ron.
Yes, my friend.
Ron.
Yes, sir.
What are you drinking this week?
Pulling a can from the Tavor box yet again. This is from Central Coast Brewing. This is their Golden Glow Pale Lager. They're based out of San Luis Obispo in California, clocking in at 5.2%. Got a nice clear body on it for a lager. Look at that gold color right there. I mean, that just looks delicious. Let's take
now that
a sip.
looks like a beer. That looks like a beer, my friend.
Oh yeah, no, that's good. That is that's the kind of beer that's crushable. I mean, it's wintertime, but that is a beer that I think you can prepare to drink as you get ready for Hot Podcaster Summer, just around the corner.
The thing is, at least in my world, and I know we might be a little different. I know you tend to go for the ales, the porters, the stouts, during this time of winter.
Sure.
But to me, a crushable beer is a year-round item.
No, I would agree with that. I would agree with that 100%.
If you've got yourself something crushable that you can have 5, 6 without really starting to feel heavy, it doesn't matter what the calendar says.
Nope.
You can always enjoy a crushable beer.
Throw the calendar out the window. All right, coming up now, we've got Beef of the Week.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
Brian, what's bothering you this week?
Nothing major,
Okay.
but I do have something that did bother me earlier this week.
Okay.
As friends of the show who have been watching over the past 23 seasons that we've been doing this show,
Roughly.
you'll know that anytime I make a trip over to my local Costco, I come out with some type of beef. This weekend was no different.
All right. What happened?
The lady and I went over to Costco yesterday. Had to pick up a couple things.
Of course.
I was a little low on Cheerios, so I bought a good 16-pound case. Was a little bit low on dishwashing detergent, so I picked up 6 gallons.
Yep.
But while I was there, I really do believe that when you go to Costco, you are going to witness some of the most inconsiderate human behavior that is on display nowadays in society. For some reason, when you are exiting a aisle in Costco, and I'm sure it's the same at Sam's Club or BJ's, depending where your bulk item warehouse style food services. I don't know what they're called anymore. Instead of actually exiting the aisle and continuing in a direction, I believe that a lot of people seem to be under the assumption that you come to a complete stop upon reaching the end of the aisle before exiting the aisle.
Almost like they feel like they're merging into traffic.
Yes. So the number of people that are moving a cart forward while looking sideways at the items on the warehouse racks and have zero concern whether they are walking into a human being and not realizing that, hey, I should also, look forward. And then also, and I've said this before, I will repeat myself, the number of people who literally will jam pack the end of an aisle because somebody is giving out free samples of a cracker.
Right.
Not even nothing on top of the cracker. Yesterday, they were giving away crackers. They were giving away pieces of Impossible chicken nuggets, where it was no chicken was harmed in the making of this product.
Correct.
And there was something else. It might have been some kind of what the fuck was it? It wasn't a fruit. Doesn't matter. It literally was just. I go into Costco and I spend the entire time getting mad at people.
I feel the same way. I have very similar experience. I think it's just universal across all Costcos.
So why do we do it? Why do we keep going?
We love a value, Brian. We love a good value. We like $1.99 hot dog and soda is what we like.
Have you ever had one of their hot dogs?
I have.
How are they?
I mean, they're about what you would expect.
Okay.
They're fine. I mean, it's $2. It's a foot-long hot dog, That's the
not
roll
like
that
Nathan's.
Really, no, nothing's like Nathan's. It's the roll really that kills the Costco hot dog. The hot dog in itself is fine. The roll is just too, like, if I'm having a hot dog, I don't want like a thick, doughy roll. I want like I think that's where Nathan gets it right, is that it's a very minimal roll that they put it on.
Sure.
Like, you really get,
of course.
I don't think you should have more roll than meat in your mouth at any time. Which ironically was your slogan in college, but
that was when I ran for student body president. That was my campaign slogan.
It was inspiring.
Less bread, more meat in your mouth.
Yep.
Vote for Brian. Ron.
Yes.
What's bothering you?
So my beef this week, Brian, and buckle in, it's going to be a ride, is the Friends experience currently taking place at the King of Prussia Mall outside Philadelphia. I believe also taking place in New York right now.
I've walked by it. It is on 23rd in Lexington.
So I will say I'm not a huge fan of Friends, but my wife is. She's a huge fan of the show. Again, is it one of the more problematic TV shows of the 90s? Yes. Has it aged poorly? Sure. Is it, despite having taken place in one of the most diverse cities in the world, showed a tremendous lack of diversity in the cast until they awkwardly started to cram people of color into some of the episodes in later seasons? Yes, but it's also got some catchy slogans, apparently, and my wife turns it on and likes to listen to it as she falls asleep each and every night. So I have come to know the shows, regardless. Now, The other thing we know, Brian, as we talk about often in this show, is there are some certain things in life. There's death,
Of course.
there's taxes, and there's the fact that I'm just an amazing husband. And you've often said off the show that at times you feel like you wish you had been born a woman so I could wife you up. And I appreciate when you say that.
Yes.
So I'm like, hey, I'll do a date night for my wife. I will get us tickets to the Friends experience because she likes Friends so much. And I'll make dinner reservations for a restaurant that's at the mall that we both like. And it'll be a nice night out. So I get 2 tickets to the 5 o'clock entry. They're timed entries.
Okay.
2 tickets.
Everything is nowadays.
2 tickets to the 5 o'clock entry to the Friends experience. Pay attention. I'm going to be like the prosecution in the Alex Murdaugh case. Keep track of the timeline. So we've got a 5 o'clock entrance into the Friends experience.
Sure.
And then we've got dinner at 6:30.
So you're going to be in and out hour and a half.
So they said give yourself 45 minutes to do the Friends experience. Okay. So I was like, all right, so even if she wants to spend a little bit more time,
sure.
And then we're at the mall, whatever.
You got plenty of you can walk around, do a little window shopping before you sit down.
Exactly. So pre-arrival, fantastic. I get an email on Friday saying, hey, you're coming to the Friends experience tomorrow. Here is where we're located in the mall, because it's a huge, ridiculously large mall. Mm-hmm. Here's where you should park and get there 10 minutes before your ticket time. 4:50. Let's keep track of this timeline here.
Okay.
So we roll on over, get there about 4:30, do a little shopping. Actually, we probably got there a little bit before 4:30 because we went up about 20 minutes ahead of time. They said be there 10 minutes ahead of time. You know what? Let's go up. Maybe we'll get in a little early. We go up the escalator to the 3rd floor where this place is. And there is, I'm going to say conservatively, somewhere between 100 and 150 people in line waiting to get into this thing. And I'm
is the line moving fast?
We'll get there.
Oh, geez.
So I'm like, but I have 5 o'clock. And everybody in line is like, yeah, we all have general admission 5 o'clock tickets. Now, the line reflects the same diversity as I mentioned that Friends did. It was mostly middle-aged white people. Younger white people, but mostly middle-aged white people. Like, people were walking by saying, hey, is there a John Tesh concert going on? Like, that's how middle-aged and white it was. Like, someone else came by and said, is Tucker Carlson doing a book signing here? Is this one of those classes where you learn how to cook with as few spices as possible? Like, that's how middle-aged and white it was.
Sure.
And then there's the outfits. People are wearing Friends paraphernalia. There's apparently a variety of Friends t-shirts, hats. One group of women were over the top dressed because I think they were doing this for the Instagram. Like it was absolutely ridiculous. So we get at the end of this very long line. So it is now about 4:45. Okay. So we're waiting. The line does not move quickly.
Okay.
So my wife's like, I'm going to go down and shop in this one store. I'm like, fine. I'm like, I'll text you if the line starts to move. Needless to say, she was able to go shop and buy some stuff and come back. And we'd only moved about halfway up to the front. So then we get to the front, security checks our bags. We scan our tickets to only then get into another line and wait in that line. Now the clock's ticking. Now we're like, we may not make our 6:30. Like people are literally getting up. Like everyone apparently had the same idea. Like people are getting out of line and leaving because they had the same idea, but they had like 6 o'clock dinner reservation.
Right.
Like, oh, we're not going to make our dinner. And of course, now it's like Saturday and you can't change it. Like
correct.
We could have gotten like an 8:30 seating if I wanted to move our reservation. So we make a backup 7 o'clock reservation at another restaurant.
Smart.
Then we get like into a holding pen. The guy's like, all right, 30 people can come up and you'll go in next. All right, fantastic. We wait.
Now, what time is it at this point?
So it's about 5:45. So we've been in line for an hour now for a 5 o'clock entry ticket. I felt like I was more on Seinfeld than Friends. Like, you know how to take a reservation. You just don't know how to honor the reservation.
Yes.
So then we go into the first part, which is like a video presentation where they give you just like a little flashback on the show, which we know it's Friends. And It's, I believe, supposed to be voiced by the actress that played Janice on Friends, but I don't think they actually got the actress. I think they got a voiceover actress that sounded either that or she
No.
just doesn't remember how to do the voice anymore.
What
And then
was the voice? Like, who? I don't even know who was Janice.
and she was one of Chandler's on and off girlfriends during the show. Had like a
Okay,
very nasally, annoying voice.
sure.
And then they give you, of course, you've paid for your ticket, but they have to do the additional cash grab. They give you a little card with a QR code because
Sure.
there's going to be photo ops as you go through the show. So we have to
Sure.
wait there till the first photo op through the group ahead of us gets through the first photo op, which we go
Sure.
in. It is the iconic couch in front of the fountain. So there's 30 of us, which now need to wait in line to have our photo taken with this couch. And the woman photographer is like, well, if you don't want to buy this photo, you can just go into the exhibit. And we're like, we don't want to buy these photos. We'll take our own
Right.
photos. So we start walking through the exhibit, and it's like there's some costumes from the show. There's some scripts from the show. There is the couch, the famous pivot scene where Ross is trying to get a couch up the staircase. That was another photo op. We skipped that. Obviously, we don't want to do
Are
it.
you allowed to like sit on the couch?
It's like on a staircase, so it's that one you couldn't really go to, but other
Okay,
stuff you were
okay.
allowed to sit on. There are wigs of Rachel's various hairstyles throughout the seasons. There's Joey and Chandler's apartment. There is a timeline of everyone, all the cast members dated. There's Monica and Rachel's apartment, and then it finishes with Central Perk. So we get in. We probably got in the door at 10 of 6. We were walking out of the exhibit by 6:10. Like if you take out
Whoa. You did that in like 25 minutes?
in like 20 minutes. Because if you take out the time you would have to wait for all of the photo shoots that you could pay for, you literally just could blow through it in 20 minutes. And that was with taking photos of my wife in different sets and things like that.
Damn.
And then they hit you
Do
with
I-
the gift shop on the way out, of course.
Of course. Do I dare ask how much the tickets were? Or is that
So
not?
I bought them early online, so they were only $39 each. Now, if you had wanted to jump the line, if you wanted the VIP ticket, that was $20 additional each. If you wanted to not have to
Okay.
wait in that general admission line.
Got
But you
it.
want to hear the crazy thing? The first day that they were open, they just opened on February 10th there in King of Prussia. 2,000 people went through at $40 a pop. So that's 80 grand in like one day. And they're going to be there through May.
Good for them. Hey,
I mean, listen.
good for them.
Kudos. But long story short, my wife had a good time, and we made our 6:30 dinner reservation. So, but I think the fact that like when you buy a 5 o'clock ticket, you expect to be going in sometime in the ballpark of 5 o'clock.
Mhm.
That's just me.
Nice.
Yeah, nice.
Well, I'm going to say this to you. You were a good husband.
I do my best.
What was, more importantly, what was Mrs. Ron's experience? Was she happy with it, or was she
She was,
also
yeah.
the mindset of, wow, I can't believe that we did this in a half an hour? What a waste.
I think she liked, because I took photos of her in the different sets, and like
Sure.
at Ross's keyboard and holding holding Phoebe's guitar. Like she had fun with it because she's a
Okay.
big fan of the show. So there
Right.
was a lot of stuff that she enjoyed, and I was just happy seeing that she enjoyed it.
Now, at any point, were there any podcast stickers seen in the exhibit?
There were not. I mean, there was a lot of security there to make sure you didn't touch certain things.
Oh.
Because these are
Okay.
apparently actual relics from the original show.
Really? Okay. All right. That makes sense. Speaking of relics, Ron.
Yes.
Speaking of relics.
Do you have something you'd like to show the audience, Brian?
I would like to show the audience this box. This box, people. This box. This box. This box, Ron, do you want to tell us what this box is?
So I have honored my commitment to the Super Bowl bet. Brian is 51% owner of the podcast, and therefore he gets the title belt. So I shipped that out on Tuesday due to the federal holiday on Monday. I believe you got that on Thursday, correct?
Yes.
And you have kept it. And there has been a lot of speculation as to if the actual title belt is in that box. So you want to do the unboxing live here on the air. So that is the original box from Trophy Smack that they shipped the belt in. Again, Trophy Smack, great producer of podcast title belts. So Brian, crack that open. Let me know what you have in there. Let me know. There are a few people who are doubting that I fulfilled my obligation. Just be careful cutting into that. You don't want to damage the front of the belt.
We did have a poll on our Patreon as to whether you would have actually sent me the championship belt.
Right.
I believe by a 75 to 25% margin, people said, yes, you did send me the belt. And I see the fucking belt. Holy shit.
There you go.
This is so much bigger than I thought it was. Oh my God.
It's and there's a bag of bolts in the
I saw them.
Yeah. So if anything falls out of the back of that, you can fix it.
People. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. How much does this hurt you, Ron? How much does this hurt you?
Seeing your glee makes up for it. And plus, I take solace in the fact that I was the first champion. And that is something you can never take away. Like no one talks about the second person to walk on the moon. They talk about the first. So I feel my place in history is secure, but I'm happy to see that. It's an impressive belt. You have to admit, when we ordered this
is so much more impressive than I thought.
You did not expect that we would be getting that high quality of a product.
No. Hold on.
You can see why you would want to just put that on and walk around your house, right?
Oh, absolutely. All right, Ron, let's do the fucking show.
All right. Well, Brian has the belt. And from what I understand, Brian, you have also, in one of your first acts as champion, brought a new sponsor to the show.
Yes.
Would you like to discuss who our new sponsor is this week?
Our sponsor is now one of the things that I struggled with during. Hold on, I got to pick it up again. During the year, one of the things that I struggled with was securing paid sponsors.
Right.
However, now, and I believe the reason why I struggled was because when I was talking to the marketing companies, the marketing firms, the marketing reps from these companies, and they said, are we talking to a decision maker? And I would say, no, I'm 49% owner. And calls would immediately end. Meetings would immediately be canceled. And I believe earlier this week, I made a call with a small boutique hospitality firm and sat there and said to them, listen, would you like to come on the show? Would you like to be a sponsored for the show? And they heard my pitch and they were like, are we talking to a decision maker? Are we talking to a winner? And I said, yes, you are talking to a champion. Ron?
Yes.
Are you planning a visit or an event in State College, Pennsylvania? Well, say hi at the Hyatt. Explore the best of State College luxury with artfully designed inviting spaces at Hyatt Place State College. That's right, the Hyatt Place State College, which offers a boutique-style atmosphere with comforts that keep you relaxed, connected, and ready to tackle the day. And just for our listeners, the Hyatt Place State College will give 15%. This time's gotta stop.
I don't believe that was a sanctioned discount right there, so I'm afraid I had to cut you off. We'll review that ad. I believe there may be a conflict of interest as well.
What? I got the belt. I can't believe it. So once again, you're not willing to take their money.
Listen, I just think these are, even though you're still still podcast owner. There's still some legal ramifications of the things that you do, and we just need to have conversations about that. But let's get on with our stories of the week. With you being 51% owner, I assume you held Matt to a high standard to get our stories of the week bumper produced.
I spoke to him. Unfortunately, he did not return any of my messages. I did speak to Matt's mother. She cares about him deeply.
Sure. As
We
we
go
all do.
back. We go so many years back. His mother's an angel. She's put up with so much. She told me she's not heard from him in 6 days.
Ooh.
The last she did hear from him, he was in Detroit, Michigan, saying that he was looking to buy a car. He did refer to something as a hoopty, and she's not heard from him since. So we're just hoping that Matt's okay.
All right, well, then let's get right into it. Brian, what was your favorite story of this week?
My favorite story of this week is it takes place in Florida. You know me.
Yes.
I'm a lover of any story
You are a
that
sucker
takes place in
for
Florida.
Florida stories, yes.
Do you have a photo of Uneski Ramirez Martinez?
There you go.
You are looking at Uneski Ramirez Martinez. Now, a lot of people would sit there and say, this man looks like a weightlifter. This man looks like a power lifter, a trainer of some type.
Maybe MMA, perhaps?
Very possible. He's got that neckline. I've always been jealous of people with those kind of necks.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. A Florida high school coach, Uneski Ramirez Martinez, has been busted for getting two 16-year-old students to let him film them performing a sex act in the classroom, then trying to blackmail one of them into having sex with him. He approached the teens inside downtown Doral Charter Upper School in suburban Miami on Valentine's Day, nonetheless. After asking lewd questions, the 37-year-old athletics coach took them to a classroom to, quote, do whatever they want, only for the teens to notice that there was a camera in the room. The 6'5" then took them to another room, told them to, quote unquote, do it, then stood filming them through a two-way window as they performed a sex act, the warrant said. Video from the camera in the adjacent room caught him then giving the duo a thumbs up and even giving one a fist bump. Ramirez Martinez approached one of the teens the next day, telling her that she needed to be with someone more experienced as he tried to persuade her to perform the same sex act on him, the arrest warrant said. He continued pestering her when she refused, bragging that he liked minors. The girl finally reported him when he threatened to lie to the other team that she had been with unless she succumbed to his advances. Ramirez Martinez was arrested this past Monday, pictured here smiling in his mugshot photo, and he is currently being held on $40,000 bond, facing charges of an offense against students by authority figures, solicitation of a child and engage in an act that constitutes sexual battery by a custodial authority, and promoting the sexual performance by a child.
Well, that is disturbing.
And yet, in Florida, our education officials are obsessed over banning books
and drag brunches.
Yes, absolutely. That is the focus of the Florida State Department of Education, not monsters like Uneski Ramirez Martinez. Ron,
yes.
What's your story of the week?
So my story, coming off of Valentine's Day, Brian, it's a love story. And I know you are as romantic as they come. We have a photo here of Tony and Francis Toto. They live in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and a local newspaper shared their story as they celebrated 57 years of loving marriage going through this past Valentine's Day. However, they also told of back in 1983 when Tony and Francis had a bit of rough patch within their marriage. The two had built a life together, running their family-owned pizza shop with their 4 kids. However, Francis discovered that Tony had been unfaithful, and Francis was devastated. However, she decided that Tony had to pay. Francis hired teenage hitmen to kill her husband. The teens attempted to kill Tony 5 different times. The young hitmen beat him with a bat, blew up his car, and then shot him in the head and chest. He was shot after Francis cooked him a nice dinner with a special ingredient of sleeping pills. Tony spent 12 days in the hospital recuperating. Francis was arrested. However, after Tony was released from the hospital, he immediately bailed Francis out of jail. And I think there's really no better testament to love than a husband bailing his wife out of jail after she's attempted to kill him. So their story is Tony said, communication may have been the issue. I mean, I would think the affair would be the issue.
Sure.
But they said that since '83, they've worked on communicating better. And even though she tried to kill him, they are still together after 57 years.
Wow. Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Would you be upset at your wife if you found out that she cheated on you like 30 years ago?
I mean, we weren't together 30 years ago.
No, what I mean is like, say, fast forward, 40 years ago.
Okay.
And then you somehow found out that she had an affair, like just so many years ago on you.
I would be upset. Yes.
You still would be upset. I don't know that I would. I probably would be upset, but I also don't know that I would want to have my spouse killed.
It's a tough. Well, I mean, I don't know that I'd want my spouse killed. I think in general, that's typically a bad way to go about handling.
Would you make her repay you for the Friends tickets?
I probably would send her a Venmo request for her half of the ticket.
Okay, that's fair.
Yes.
You are a reasonable person.
Billy brings up a good point. This isn't the first time we've heard of someone bailing a wife out after an assault. It's a theme, and I'm not going to say that's part of the reason it was my story of the week, but I'm not going to say it wasn't part of the reason that it became my story of the week. You
want to know something? I never made the connection.
Really? Even after I emphasized it twice in the past story?
Nope.
All right, fair enough.
I did not make that connection. I guess I was just too distracted by this World Championship belt. You are right, Ron. This is 6 pounds of gold strapped right here.
Now, moving on, we've got stories from the New York Post, always impartial, always fair and balanced. There was a report. Now, this is, you're going to have to help me with this a little bit, because in reading the story from the New York Post, it talks about the U.S. Energy Department releasing a classified report saying that the virus that causes COVID-19 most likely leaked from a Chinese laboratory, where other news outlets have said that this report states that it could have leaked from a Chinese laboratory, but it's a low-level intelligence, meaning that they haven't really been able to back it up with any facts. Yet the New York Post is running this as is its gospel.
Well, I think you're looking at the New York Post as a news organization, very much being agenda-driven. They absolutely want to highlight any story that makes the Chinese look worse. It is reading the Post on a regular basis, as one has a tendency to do as a fan of this show. You definitely see that the narrative that is very popular amongst the Post is in line with the Republican, Freudian slip there, the Republican GOP party, which is that China is the greatest threat and that Russia is not so bad.
Right.
The Post agenda very much is anything having to do with China is this country. This is a country that we need to go to war with. While anything having to do with Ukraine is Ukraine is losing and that Russia is going to win.
And again, I think it just continues to show that I don't know that we still have an answer one way or the other. I think it's still in the realm of possibility, but even FBI put it at a moderate level of confidence, while the Energy Department put it at a low level of confidence. Not quite sure why the Energy Department is releasing classified reports, though.
Well, because we put a lot of energy into the pandemic. We put, we people were drinking bleach. People were taking horse tranquilizers and other medicines.
That was a crazy time. Remember that?
Children were being declared not having any receptors.
It's hard to believe that was only 3 years ago. Like, we're literally
Oh my
coming up
God, yeah.
on the 3rd anniversary of when we really started to shut things down. And
Sure,
people
sure.
were like, "Oh yeah, let's just inject bleach into our veins. Let's take horse tranquilizers. Let's wear gloves while we go shopping." And now, some of us will sit in a packed airport in Cancun to sit on a packed flight coming home.
And while at the same time, were you wearing a mask at all on that airplane?
Of course not. Were you wearing a title belt? Look at that. It's beautiful. I can't even miss it because the look of joy on your face from having that title belt just really, it fills my heart.
Ron, you're going to see this belt again. Ron, you will see this belt again.
I'm sure I will.
You're going to see it on April 6th, I believe.
I believe that's the date when AEW comes to the UBS Arena in Belmont, New York.
And I will be carrying this. I so regret, and I'm going to, you know this. I so regret having acknowledged that I will be, that the winner of the Super Bowl bet will be carrying the belt all day throughout the arena.
It's a lot to carry.
I'm going to be so sick of this.
It's heavy.
Be so sick of this. But you know what? Maybe I'll let Billy hold it for a little bit.
Listen, I think you have some photo opportunities when we're there that night. I mean, I think it's
sure.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun, to say the least.
Absolutely.
April 5th. I'm sorry, April 5th.
Good. So when I go to the UBS Arena on April 6th, I will be sorely disappointed.
You will.
You will. Yes.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene made the news again last week, being accused of calling for civil war in a President's Day tweet. She said, quote, "We need a national divorce. We need to separate by red states and blue states and shrink the federal government." I have no issue with that, actually.
I don't either. I feel, listen, I've spoken about this multiple times in different ways. I am a firm believer in the First Amendment. I do believe that people should be allowed to speak their opinion. And I believe at the same time that there should be ramifications for what that opinion is. The people are, the left is acting as if nobody has ever brought up the idea of the South seceding or Republican states seceding or, a realignment of our nation. The fact that we've been in existence for over 200 years, and we've already had a very bloody civil war. I think that these are views that are well represented within the country. When the day comes that they are held by a majority of the people, I think that's when something needs to take place. But to sit there and just be able to, this woman who, whether we like it or not, is a duly elected representative of a congressional district. It's one thing for Republicans in Long Island to sit there and say, "Hey, with George Santos, we voted for somebody, but they had completely lied about who they were, and therefore this person should not be in an elected official representing us." In this case, with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I believe is from Georgia,
correct?
I think
you're correct in that.
The people of her district are fans of hers. They support her in what she says and does. So who are you and I, or the woke media, which I believe we are very proud supporters of, to sit there and say that she does not have the right to make these comments?
Right, and people are calling her seditious, treasonous. I mean, the sad thing is she obviously makes commentary like this just to get publicity, just to get traction on social media, and it never fails. Like, she is one of those people that if you ignored her, would probably just shut up eventually, because she'd have to find another way to get attention in the media. But instead, she panders to the lowest common denominator, and media outlets pick this up and run with it. But at the end of the day, we've run the numbers, we've talked about the reports. Like, the majority of the red states in the country would not survive without the tax dollars that are contributed to them from the blue states. I want to say in the top 25 states that give more tax money than they take, roughly 95% of those were blue states.
Sure.
So I would say there's probably a ton of blue states that would be like, fantastic, let's separate because we can get so much more shit done in our own states if they didn't have to take all that federal money out of our states to pay for states that can't afford it themselves.
Sure. And yet that's somehow not part of the dialogue.
No.
Georgia somehow thinks that because they take, I believe it's on average $5 from the federal government per resident of Georgia, they would not be able to survive at their current standard of living, which is already atrocious.
Right.
We describe these states; they have some of the lowest per capita incomes. And somehow think that without the federal government support, they'd be doing just fine.
Right. I mean, you look at these states and they're already ranking near the bottom in education, in healthcare. They rank near the top in infant mortality, mother mortality after giving birth. I don't know. It's crazy. But she managed not to be the GOP member with the worst take this past week. That would be Republican David Eastman. He is a legislator. He's a legislator in Alaska. He questioned during a committee meeting to discuss how children are impacted by physical or sexual abuse or witnessing domestic violence. He questioned whether the death of child abuse victims could be, quote, a cost savings because it would mean that they don't need government services later in life. Lawmakers were shown a study indicating each incident of fatal child abuse costs society $1.5 million, a figure reached by assessing the impact of trauma and the child's loss of earnings over a lifetime. However, Eastman was unimpressed and questioned whether fatal child abuse could be economically beneficial to a wider society. He said, quote, it can be argued periodically that it's actually a cost savings because that child is not going to need any of those government services that they might otherwise be entitled to receive and need based on growing up in this type of environment.
Wow. That's a hot take.
But this is the Right to Life Party. This is the life that wants every child's life to be protected prior to coming out of the womb. But once they come out of the womb, well, if you die and you're disadvantaged or you're poor, we'll save money in the long run.
You're on your own. Fuck them. It's shocking the lack of I don't know. I'm still shocked at just the lack of concern for other humans that are demonstrated by, like you said, the so-called Right to Life group.
Yeah. It's and this, I mean, again, saying the quiet part out loud, this guy was.
Yeah, but it's just shocking.
So, question for you, Brian. We ask a lot of questions. Here's another one for you. What are you watching?
Ooh, what am I watching? I finished Ted Lasso season 2, which you said you enjoyed.
I didn't finish season 2. I liked season 1. I have not finished season 2.
Okay, I finished season 2. Season 3 should be coming out next month, I believe. I will be watching it, but not sure why season 2 needed to exist. Also, that show actually drove me to watching stuff on Apple TV, which I have not watched, Apple TV in a very long time, despite paying $6.99 a month for it. Right. But while there, I also saw that Gary Oldman is in a show on there, which is 2 seasons long. I just finished season 1. It is called Slow Horses. It is a story about MI5 spy agencies. That's kind of like their FBI, CIA, domestic spy service. Very interesting. In true British style, it's about 6 episodes a season and you're done. Each episode's about 40, 45 minutes or whatnot. Kept your interest, some twists, some turns, but overall, easy to follow and whatnot. And he's such a damn fine actor.
Right.
I mean, he and here he plays a, down on his luck, basically counting days to retirement spy, looking to not get involved in anything, and obviously he gets sucked in. But really, a good show. Definitely enjoyed it. Also, watched on Hulu. Hold on, I wrote it down because I'm never going to be able to remember. The Stolen Youth: Inside the Cult at Sarah Lawrence. That is the story of Larry Ray, who was the father of a college student whose daughter was living in a dorm with about 8 other students. He gets released from prison. Apparently, he was in prison for about 10 years, gets released, immediately moves in with the daughter in her dorm room. And before you know it, he has basically created a cult amongst all the other kids that were in that dorm, where they are basically allowing him to run their lives and dictate who they're allowed to talk to, who not to, and whatnot. And like all cults, starts off with, "Hey, I met somebody who's got some great ideas, really wants to help me, and I'm not in a good place emotionally, mentally, whatnot, but this person cares, and they're going to, try to, help me live a better life." And then before you know it, things are not going so well. And I believe he was just recently sentenced to about 60 years in prison for the crimes that he committed. So if that's your thing, watch it. But if you're looking for lewd and lascivious details, which I was pleased were not in there, I'm not looking for.
You don't
smut
want
here.
exploitation, no.
No, not at all. If that's what you're looking for, skip this, because it's very heavy on the emotional toll that was taken on these poor children's lives, and watching them try to put the pieces back together. And in some cases, it's a happy story. In some cases, not.
All right.
Ron,
Yes.
what are you watching?
Oh, well, thank you for asking, Brian. So I watched the first 3 episodes of The Consultant on Amazon Prime, new show with Christoph Waltz. He is a consultant that goes to work at a video game company after a workplace tragedy, although no one seems to know why exactly he's there. It is, I will say, it's a dark comedy almost. A lot of intrigue, a lot of mystery. I like it so far. I mean, we were talking before the show. Christoph Waltz plays the same character. He's just good sometimes, evil other times, crazy other times. So I think this is kind of borderline evil, crazy Christoph Waltz. The first episode, there's some you're kind of getting an idea where it goes, and then at the end, the final scene is just so like off the wall that you're like, what the hell did I just watch? And it's just, each episode has those parts of it that you're like, this seems like a normal show, and then it gets weird, but it's good. I would recommend that. I also watched the new M. Night Shyamalan film, Knock at the Cabin.
How was that?
That was good. I liked it. Again, I don't think is it Sixth Sense good? No. But it's a decent movie. It moves quickly. It's an hour and 40 minutes. There's not a lot of wasted time, not a lot of wasted dialogue. It's an interesting story. I would recommend it. It's a good watch if you like just like a decent horror film. Can
you tell me? I'm sorry. Can you at least tell me like what's the plot of it?
So the premise is there is a family at this cabin in the woods, 2 husbands and their adopted daughter, and Dave Bautista and a group of 3 other people kind of break into the cabin and hold the family hostage because they say the family has to decide to kill one of the 3 of themselves. And Dave Bautista and his group can't decide, can't kill them, or the world is going to be destroyed by an apocalypse. And then you see how that plays out.
Okay, so 3 people break into a house. And
4 people break into a house.
4 people in the 4 people break into a house and say, you have to pick one of us to kill? Or...
No. Either one of the 2 husbands or the kid. The family of 3 has to pick one of the family members, and the other 2 have to kill the 3rd family member in order to save the earth from this apocalypse that is supposed to happen.
So if none of the 3 agree on who to kill, the apocalypse will happen.
There are various plagues and they ask them multiple times, and each time they refuse to make a decision, there is a plague unleashed on the earth. And so you
Really?
have, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's well done.
Mhm.
Again, I liked it. It's not getting great reviews out there. I think it's based on a book, and I think people that like the book, they don't like the way that the movie was changed from the book. But it was
Right.
good. I think it's one of the better M. Night films that he's done out of his last few films.
Okay.
But the best movie I watched, and I just watched it today, was the new Darren Aronofsky film, The Whale, starring Brendan
Mhm.
Fraser, where he plays a morbidly obese online English professor who is trying to reconnect with his estranged daughter before he dies. Great film. And you
Really?
Great film, and you are someone who I think is a student of film. You love
Sure.
just great filmmaking. I think this is
I do.
great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is great filmmaking. I can see why Brendan Fraser has won awards for this role. I would
Sure.
put him as a strong Oscar contender. And my wife and I watched this, and we were in tears at the end of the movie.
Really?
It is that strong. It is that emotional. It is that good. So if you get the opportunity,
Where is it on?
it's on a few different streaming services. It's in the theaters. We watch it through this thing called Plex. So I'll have to see if we can get you connected with that.
Okay.
Um,
I might be able to obtain I mean, if it's not streaming, for the masses, I might be able to see if I could reach out to the publicity and get a
yeah,
screener
get
copy.
a screener copy.
Yeah.
Just again, it's based off of a play, and you can really tell, like, the way that it's shot, you can see how it would have worked as a stage play.
Hmm.
But as good as everyone has been saying it is, and
Then
Brendan
I will.
Fraser is
Yeah.
as good as everyone says it. I mean, it's just it just tears at your heartstrings through the movie, and then it just ends on such an emotional note that I would put this up there with one of his best works.
Well, are we talking Brendan Fraser or Aronofsky?
Both.
Because Brendan Fraser's best work was The Mummy.
Well, of course, I would put this above The Mummy, and I would put this. And for
Wow.
Darren Aronofsky, I would put this above The Wrestler, which was a great movie.
Wrestler was a great movie, but
Yes.
I would say not as good as shit. What was the one he did about the heroin addicts
Um,
with Jared Leto, Marlon Wayans, Jennifer Connelly,
was that
Requiem for a Dream.
was that White Girls? Oh,
No,
Requiem for a
Requiem
Dream.
for a Dream.
Gotcha.
And you know what, JoJo says something very true, which is she can't watch sad things. And I'm going to say, you know what? I am prepared to watch sad things because I read the news every day. And what goes on in this world can't be rivaled by what Hollywood comes up with.
You get. I've noticed how much deeper you've got as a person since you've won the title.
Now, I have a question. At some point, am I allowed to slam this belt against your forehead? Are you
I mean,
willing to cut yourself open after I slam this belt against you?
listen, it's a situation of where you can do what you want, and I can't stop you.
Mm.
All right, so Brian,
So tempting.
I
Yes,
gotta
sorry.
ask you this question. This was a story that was burning up the internet. It was a story of someone on a flight who was talking about how their seat partner in the middle seat of the plane brought on and ate a full rack of ribs, sides included, which has garnered outrage from people.
Yeah, saw this. Let's
Now,
talk, Ron.
you are someone who travels extensively. You were very well
Mhm.
traveled. You are a world traveler.
Thank
How
you.
would you respond to your seatmate on a flight, regardless of how long it was, eating a rack of ribs next to you?
I think I would be fascinated, disgusted, but I don't know that I would say anything to them.
Okay. Now, to be fair,
Like, there's other
you don't like confrontation.
I don't. But
Yeah.
at the same time, there are things that I would say. Like
Okay.
there was a story on social media this week where a woman, had thrown her hair over the chair, so it was literally streaming around in the face. I think I would have said something there.
Yeah,
But
I
a
think
rack
so.
of ribs, and also I will say this: I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not a vegan. I am a carnivore. So therefore, there would be part of me that would be sitting there being like, wonder if those ribs are good. I wonder if I wonder what kind of barbecue sauce, like is it tangy? Is it spicy? Like what do we like? Like that would be going through my head. If I was a vegetarian, I would be horrified
Sure.
to sit next to somebody who decided to take out a rack of ribs. But also there is something to be said. Just like once again, to bring it full circle, I started, talking about a lack of concern at Costco for those around you. Somebody who's going to bring a rack of ribs with fries onto a plane, and the thing was that if I remember correctly, they were sitting in the middle of a
Yes.
3-seater.
Correct.
So you've got people on both ends. I mean,
Yep.
that literally is just absolutely I don't care what other people think, and I will not do, anything that might slightly improve the experience of those around me.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
ribs are very aromatic.
they are. And I will say this, I'm very torn on this because on the one side, I get where the guy with the rack of ribs is coming from, because for what he probably paid for those rack of ribs, you would get like a few cubes of cheese and crackers and grapes if you bought a snack on the plane. So it feels like
Okay.
more economical to bring your. Now, also, I would not say anything because I am as non-confrontational as you are, but
Sure.
I'm also considerate of my fellow travelers. Like, if I'm going to purchase food to bring on a plane, I'm not
Yeah.
going to get I'm not going to get onions. I'm not going to
True.
get
Yes.
fish. I'm not going to get, I'm not going to get something that, to your point, overly aromatic.
Yeah.
Ribs, it's borderline because who doesn't like the smell of ribs?
Vegans, vegetarians,
Valid point.
and also people that just don't want to smell ribs.
True.
I mean, also there's the other aspect of it, which is if I'm sitting there and I purchased a moderately stale ham and cheese sandwich at the Hudson News in the airport, that I'm opening up a small packet of mustard to put on it, and the bread is just hard. It's been refrigerated, probably frozen a couple times. But like, if I'm eating that sandwich, I don't want to smell somebody else's ribs.
True.
I mean, all that's going to do is destroy whatever little pleasure I might get from this ham and Swiss sandwich. I don't want to smell somebody's rack of ribs.
Well, and also, I mean, the person posted a photo, and it was like a pizza box size takeout of ribs.
Sure.
So
I mean, they
again,
probably went to Chili's to go.
point being, you're in the middle seat. That
Yeah.
box has to be spilling over into
Of
the
course.
space of the window and the aisle passenger. So
There's
I think the airlines have created this issue, but again, we've talked so often about that social contract where you try and be considerate of your fellow man. And yes, just because you can bring a full rack of ribs on the plane with you doesn't necessarily mean that you should bring a full rack of ribs.
shouldn't.
With you.
Absolutely, you should not. But you know what you should do, Ron?
What's that?
You should go to our website, ronandbrianpodcast.com. Click the link in the upper right-hand corner that says Become a Patron. Now, what happens when you become a patron? You are able to access exclusive behind the paywall content every week after we finish this podcast on Sunday nights. We do a minimum of 30 minutes of exclusive content that only our Patreon subscribers, our supporters, and our friends get access to for as little as $5 a month. And for as much as $100,000 lifetime contribution, you are taking an active role in supporting this podcast. You are supporting Ron. You are supporting Brian. Myself, excuse me. But most importantly, what you're doing is you're helping offset the costs that Ron and I go out of pocket for on this show, throughout the year. StreamYard, with the service that we use that we use to create this podcast,
Right.
that costs money. The website costs money. One of the things we do every month is we do a pajama party where we invite all of our What? It's not bronze. Is it bronze level and higher? Yes, bronze,
Yes,
because aluminum is the $5. So for
correct.
$5 a month, literally the price of a Starbucks cup of coffee, you have no excuse not to do this. For $5 a month, you get an audio file that you can download once a week and listen to the extra 30 minutes of material. Now, what kind of material you're asking? These are stories that are not quite ready for Facebook. YouTube does not want us talking about it on their platform. So we put it behind the paywall. Patreon is willing to host. Other things that we do is for $10 a month, price of 2 cups of coffee a month. People, this is not a lot of money. We're not trying to get rich off of this. We're simply just trying to, all right, maybe.
It'd be nice if we could, though.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
But what we do is, for $10 a month, you get a video file of the show. It looks almost like this, but it's a little bit nicer because there's a lot more photos. We do stories such as what I don't should we say what kind of stories we have?
I think they really have to experience it themselves.
Understood. But the crown jewel of the bronze level or higher of Patreon is the pajama party, which I mentioned earlier. Once a month, the last Sunday of every month, we have we send out an invitation to our Patreons, and they come on the show with us, just like Ron and I are on. We've got 4, 5, 6 people once a month, and we talk every other month. We're trying to have a game. Can you beat Ron? And this month we do have a game, and February is Black History Month. So it is. What does that look for?
I just get worried with some of the content you do.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Right.
There won't be anything inappropriate.
Right.
Black History Month. So we will be celebrating the contributions of Black people throughout
Right.
history. Anything to add, Ron?
Nothing to add. Although, do we want to talk about the elephant in the room?
What's the elephant in the room?
So last week, I talked about a new project, a little side project, which you seemed supportive of. You seemed supportive of the Ron and Ron podcast. So you can imagine my shock when I received a cease and desist letter from you, claiming ownership of the words "the Ron," the ampersand, and podcast. Here's a photo of the cease and desist. I was hurt by this, and there's no other way around it. I thought you were fine with my side project, and obviously this is on official Ron and Brian podcast letterhead.
Sure.
It was delivered by courier, and I just felt like this would be something that we could have had a man-to-man discussion about.
Is that the same way that we could have had the man-to-man conversation beforehand about whether you were going to do the show or not?
No, we did the show last week. You and I did the Ron and Brian podcast.
You at no point said to me in advance, "Hey, Brian, I'm thinking about doing my own show."
Well, we've had that discussion on and off over the years.
At any point, did you say to me, "I'm going to be using the Ron and Blank podcast"? I do feel that there is some copyright infringement.
Okay.
I believe that there is some intellectual property that is being, how do I say this, stolen when you do a Ron and Ron podcast. So, you want to do another podcast? Absolutely. That's fine. But there's different, come up with a different name for it.
Well, then lawyer up, because I'm not coming for just 30%. I'm coming for the whole thing.
Yeah, but you know what you got? You're stuck at 49% because I've got this bad boy.
It's addictive. Once you hold the belt, you don't want to let it go.
I'm gonna do a victory lap around the house a couple times before Patreon.
So not only was the Ron and Ron podcast canceled this week, also Scott Adams, creator of the Dilbert comic strip, canceled by a number of newspapers. Apparently, he made some comments on his online show, Real Coffee with Scott Adams, stating that, or advising white people to, quote, get the fuck away from black people. Gannett, the largest newspaper publisher in the
Gannett.
U.S., announced that announced
Gannett.
that it will no longer carry his comic. Cleveland Plains Dealer, Washington Post, all cutting. I mean, he's been on kind of a downward spiral over the last few years. Very outspoken. What's your thoughts on this? I mean, Adams basically said black people are a hate group, and that white people should stay away from them.
Listen, he's wrong. There are black people are not a hate group. If you look at, he has been a staunch opponent of woke culture. And if you in my experience, the people that are most taking a stand as part of woke culture are fellow white people, are white people who have sat there and said, listen, we may happen to have the same skin and be of the same culture as you, but we don't necessarily believe that it is a right, it is anything fair, and that we should be celebrating at the expense of other races and cultures and other groups, that other groups should have an equal opportunity, and that other people should not have to face being insulted or made to feel less than on a regular basis because they're not white.
Right.
And Scott Adams is absolutely allowed to speak his mind, to speak his opinion. And as I said earlier on the episode, fuck around, you find out there, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she has a right to speak her mind, as does Scott Adams. And in this case, he is dependent on media organizations purchasing the licensing right of his comic. And they also have the right to not sign up for his comic,
Right.
to cancel their licensing of such. And as such, he is going to be losing revenue for these views. And he's going to turn around and be like, woke culture's canceling me. And at the same time, it's no, your views are unpopular.
Right.
And because of that, you're not going to get the support of the masses. And if that's a price he's willing to pay, then so be it.
Well, he said he expected to take a huge financial hit from these cancellations, but I mean, he's already made a good amount of money off this,
Yeah, he
this
doesn't.
Dilbert franchise. He'll be fine. Again,
He doesn't need. He's been doing that for probably what 30, 40 years at this
about
point.
30 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't need the money. And also, let's be brutally honest. Dilbert hasn't been entertaining in at least a decade.
Yeah,
Easily.
easily.
And Dilbert came up being a very biting commentary on office culture.
Well, and I think you could really tell when Scott Adams became comfortable financially, because that's really when I think Dilbert lost its edge and just became like Garfield, like just very innocuous, very, like you said, not cutting edge, just very
Correct.
Rehashed and everything else.
I would have preferred it if Dilbert started talking about eating lasagna and how much Dilbert hates Mondays.
Yeah.
It would have been more entertaining. But he just lost his way so long ago with comics that were just filler that there will be no loss in the world.
And finally this week, Brian, your thoughts on the Alex Murdaugh trial and him taking the stand in his own defense.
I was shocked that he took the stand. Nowadays in America, taking the stand is basically allowing the prosecutors to get a opportunity to cross-examine you. They absolutely, he got up there, talked about how, yes, he was out the house at Moselle. He did discover the bodies, called the police, but he was not there when the murders happened. Unfortunately, by taking the stand, you got to question the legal theory here. Whether this was him sitting there telling his lawyers, "I want to testify," whether his lawyers were sitting there telling him, "This is a good idea." But the prosecutors really were able to not only place him there, but really establish the fact that he was there prior to the murder. He was there after the murder. He did not see anybody else that was there. There were no other witnesses. There were no other people there. His cell phone had some rather suspicious activity in the sense that after he had called the police and prior to the police showing, he was Googling local restaurants on his phone, which is certainly not normal behavior for somebody who has just found his wife and son taken out by various assault weapons. I'm very surprised. I don't believe he helped his case at all.
No. I mean, he had to admit that he had lied initially about his story, and the prosecution really hammered that home in the cross-examination. And then when the defense was questioning him, he put out the theory that, his wife and son were killed due to his son allegedly driving the boat that killed a woman years ago.
Right.
And then, the defense basically, the prosecution on cross-examined said, like, well, you don't think it was anybody tied to the people on the boat. So you mean that it was just a 5-foot-tall vigilante that came to your home, knew your family would be in the kennels where they weren't supposed to be, did not bring their own weapons, used your own weapons to kill your wife and daughter, or wife and son. It did not. Yeah, it was, again, I think I can't imagine any lawyer would have recommended him taking the stand. I think one thing I heard is, you get an individual like Alex Murdaugh, who's been a lawyer for so long, who feels that they can defend themselves better than anybody else, and feels that they can go up there and tell any story they want and make it believable. And it was not. It was absolutely
not only that,
believable.
Also his only remaining son. So his wife was killed. His younger son is killed. His older son was still alive.
Buster
testifies on his. By the way, Buster has some of the worst hair known to mankind. I'm not even talking about the color of his hair. I'm talking about that side part with the swirl it's coming. Oh, it's such.
He really should wear his hair short. He should not grow it out like that, without a doubt.
Correct. Just a terrible haircut. Buster looks like somebody that would get drunk on a boat and slam it into the underside of a bridge.
Allegedly.
Murdering one of his friends. So he looks like somebody that would
It just looks like.
I'm not saying Paul did it. Well, Paul's not around to defend himself anymore, so I can say that he did it.
I suppose.
There's video. Did you ever watch that show on? I think I watched the HBO or the Hulu show. I saw that Netflix now has a show on.
Yeah, Netflix has another one. It's very repetitive. I watched the first episode of Murdaugh Murders, and it's very repetitive. It goes a little bit more into the boat accident, but I'm going to wait to see the follow-up of this case when they eventually make the additional episodes.
Should be
Brian,
interesting. Yes.
We need to go get ready for the pajama party.
We do need to go.
I need to get ready for Can You Beat Ron, because it's going to be an exciting night. You need to polish up that goddamn belt, my friend, and make it look presentable. Anything else before we shoot on out of here tonight?
Absolutely no. I love you, buddy.
All right. Love you too. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Patreon folks, we will see you in a few.
Thank you for joining us on the Ron and Brian podcast. We're live each week on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can find prior episodes, links to our social media, and everything else Ron and Brian at ronandbrianpodcast.com. See you again next week.